In the name of the one who loves the beloved and love itself. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Yesterday I was in San Francisco at the ordination and consecration of Bishop Austin Rios, the new bishop of the Diocese of California, one of our sibling dioceses. And it was a great and wonderful day, a 3-hour ceremony. I'd never been to an Episcopal ordination before. Even though it was 3 hours, it kept moving, and I felt very moved by it. I felt called to my own calling. I felt reminded of my own calling. I felt the Spirit's presence as a whole collection of bishops prayed for a sibling bishop and gave them their new role and their new task. And I heard a couple of things during the day, and 2 of them stuck in my mind. And I want to share them with you now because it is between these 2 phrases that I heard that my contemplation of today's sermon has developed. So here we go. In the procession, there was a priest who was also a mum carrying her 3-year-old who wound up just behind me and set up a little kind of creche just behind me so that she could look after her little one, who was bubbling along during the service and had quiet toys and a little doll. But at one point in one of those quiet moments of the service, the 3-year-old said, "The baby's poop is stuck." Which I'm pretty sure is not the thing that her mother wanted her to say in the middle of the ordination of Austin Rios as Bishop of the Diocese of California. The baby's poop is stuck. It stuck with me. It couldn't do anything but. And then a little later on, as the preacher was preaching, he talked about a phrase used by the Jesuit thinker Walter Burghardt, who said that contemplation is the long, loving gaze at the real. Contemplation is the long, loving gaze at the real, which for different reasons started working on me. And it reminded me that we were commanded to love today by Jesus in the gospel, a continuation of that idea of being told to love, not just told to love, but commanded to love by Jesus, that we are commanded to love that started last week in our gospel and continues today, and that I am still wrestling with what it means to be commanded to love. And that phrase helped me think about it a little bit. Contemplation is the long, loving gaze at the real. And then that other phrase kept on coming back. The little girl talking about something she must have heard, a health issue going on in the family or something that got uttered out loud in front of everybody. And I thought of that mother having to look at her daughter with a loving gaze, the long, loving gaze of parenthood. And loving them, even though this had just happened in the middle of the cathedral. And recognizing that the world around us is a little bit like what that girl talked about. I won't go into detail. It's full of something. Or you might say it's on fire. The world that we are in. The real world. The world we see on our TV day by day, the world that we experience in our human relationships, the world that we experience at work in our human family relationships, the world around us is on fire. And sometimes we don't know what to do with it, and we don't know what our faith is asking us to do with it. So I was comforted by the other phrase that we are invited to participate in. Contemplation is the long, loving gaze at the real. We're asked to look at the fire of the world, at the mess of the world, with a contemplative, loving gaze. But quite frankly, I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the energy for it. So I was reminded of another phrase that has stuck with me for many years that's helping me work on this in my life at the moment. And I invite you to think about it too. Mike Higson is a theological writer in the UK, and I remember him giving a talk in 2005, just as he was publishing a new book. The book was entitled Difficult Gospel, the theology of Rowan Williams. Rowan Williams was an Archbishop of Canterbury and is one of the most prolific theological writers of our age. In 2005, it was estimated that he had some 6 million words in print. I can only imagine what it is now. But Mike Higson had set himself the task of producing a short paperback to describe the theology of Rowan Williams. And he was attempting to do that, but came and spoke to me at some diocesan event in London. I can't remember quite what it was. And he sat there and said, I was really trying to distill the work of Rowan Williams down into a phrase that I could share. And I really was wrestling when I was sitting in an airport lounge. You know, airport lounges depersonalize you in so many ways and make you feel in between things and a bit lost. He said, I was sitting there in the airport lounge thinking about all that I'd read and all that I was writing. And I realized that what Rowan Williams was trying to tell me was that I am held in a loving gaze. I am held in a loving gaze. And then as he sat there thinking about that idea that God, the divine, Jesus, is sitting opposite him, holding him in a loving gaze, his glance went to another person sitting in the airport lounge, also ready to get on a flight, who was doing some other thing in their life. And he realized, oh, that person is held in a loving gaze as well. And that person over there, and that person over there, and all of us are. And he started reflecting, what does it mean to me, and what does it say about my self-esteem and self-awareness to recognize that I'm held in a loving, accepting gaze? What would it do to me if I allowed that realization to sink in? I'm letting it sink in. You're loved. Not only are you loved, but an active personality is looking at you and everything you're doing on a day-to-day basis. The stuff that you are doing which is really good for you and the stuff that you're doing that you know isn't that good for you. An active personality, the divine, God, is looking at you, and whatever you're doing is loving you, is loving you, is looking at you with love. Like a mother looking at their child in the middle of a cathedral who says something they wish they hadn't said, and that mother loving that child. You're loved, whatever you're doing. Now, love is not boundaryless. God comes to us with boundaries in love and wants us to live in good ways, but love is limitless. It's not boundaryless, but it is limitless. The love that comes to us from the divine is never going to run out. You're never going to get yourself outside of it. You can never run beyond it. You can never turn your back on it. You can't get beyond the love of God. It's not possible. You're loved. Jesus said, I have loved you as the Father has loved me. Now love those I've given you. Love the people around you. We are invited to love in the same way that we are loved. But we can only do that when we've really understood how much we are loved, when we've only worked that reality into our lives in such a deep way that it's become a part of the structure of who we are. I said this last week, I want to say it again, there's only one way to do that. It takes time. We must abide in that realization. And there are some things that we do on a regular basis that you may be doing and may not be doing. One of the things is to simply sit down and contemplate that reality. There's Jesus looking at me, loving me, even though I'm a mess. Let that idea sink inside. But you can do it through contemplative prayer as well. Contemplative prayer, contemplation, the long, loving look at the real. You can look at the mess of the world from the context of a loving gaze that you have developed in your own life. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesday in the evening at 6 o'clock, Thursday in the middle of the day. We have contemplative prayer here at the cathedral, and if you don't know how to do it, they will happily hold your hand. Wednesday morning at 8:30, there's a meditation group online. We do contemplation and prayer. Most evenings of the week, There is an online evening prayer service here at the cathedral. You just need to go to the cathedral website, have a look at the calendar, and click on the Zoom link, and you can join. We'll hold your hand. We'll help you work on developing a contemplative, loving gaze on the world by using the Book of Common Prayer, our centering prayer practices, and meditative practices. Retreats are an important part of the ministry of the cathedral. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I'm inviting you to contemplate joining one of our retreat groups. There's a women's retreat coming up soon, but there'll be others scheduled as the year goes on. Spaces to stop, to put down your cell phone, step away from the TV, get away from all of the things that are distracting you, and find a contemplative center where you can sit with the loving gaze of the divine looking at you, and then learn a new way of looking at the world with a long, loving, contemplative gaze of your own on the world around you. It will work on you. It will change you. It will make you different. It will start to influence your interactions with other people. It will start to influence your choices around how you spend your money and your time. It will start to influence all of the things that you do in your life. And none of us have quite got it perfect, but we're on a journey. So my contemplation for you today is stuck between these two phrases. And I felt for that mum in the cathedral. But I also wondered if she was holding her child in a loving gaze, the loving gaze of parenthood, which is a pretty long loving gaze. And recognizing that that child was speaking some truth that she had experienced, maybe not in the right place at the right time, but needed love, as we all need love. And that if we've been able to listen to and internalize it, we can also offer it and give it. It's what we are trying to do as a community. And I invite you to join us in doing so. Amen.